The sun had just climbed over the wide African savanna when something impossible caught the eye of a tired wildlife researcher named Evan Cole. The grass glowed gold. The air was still. And in the middle of a moving elephant herd, there was a color that did not belong. White. Not gray. Not dusty brown. White. Evan had spent 14 years studying elephants across Africa. He knew their paths, their habits, their moods. He knew how they protected their young and how quickly they left weakness behind. That rule had never been broken. Until this morning. Through his binoculars, Evan counted the herd. 11 adults. 3 young calves. And one very small elephant that should not have been alive at all. Its skin was pale, almost pink under the sunlight. Its ears looked thin and soft. Its eyes were light, nearly blue. This was not mud or dust. This was an albino elephant calf. Albino elephants are so rare that many experts never see one in their entire lives. Most do not survive long. The sun burns their skin. Predators see them easily. Their bodies are often weaker. Nature is not gentle with animals that stand out. And this calf was struggling. It walked a few steps, then stopped. His legs shook. His breathing was fast. The herd was moving forward, slow but steady, toward water far ahead. The small calf was falling behind. Evan felt his chest tighten. He had seen this before with injured calves. The ending was usually the same. The herd keeps moving. The weak one is left. Not from cruelty but from survival. Evan told himself to stay calm. To observe. That was his job. No help. No interference. But then something happened that made his hands lower slowly from his face. The herd stopped. Not slowly. Not by accident. They stopped together. The largest female, the matriarch, turned around. Her steps were heavy but sure. She walked back toward the small white calf. Another adult followed her. Then another. The calf lifted its head. The matriarch reached out her trunk and touched the calf's side. Not pushing. Not pulling. Just touching. The herd did not leave. They waited. The young albino calf stood there, small and bright against the golden land, surrounded by giants who should have walked away but didn't. Evan felt a quiet fear rise inside him. This baby should not survive. Every rule of the wild said so. Yet the herd was changing the rules. And Evan knew, standing there in the early light, that this story was going to test everything humans thought they understood about nature. The herd did not move for a long time. Evan watched as the elephants formed a loose circle around the albino calf. It was not tight or aggressive. It was calm. Protective. The small elephant stood in the center, blinking slowly, its pale skin already turning red under the rising sun. This was not panic. This was a choice. As the heat grew stronger, the matriarch shifted her position, placing her large body between the calf and the sun. Another female moved closer from the other side. Their shadows covered the calf like a living roof. Evan had seen elephants protect babies before, but never like this. Never with such clear purpose. The calf tried to walk again. 2 steps. Then it stumbled. Before it could fall, a young female elephant stepped in front of it. She slowed her pace and waited, matching the calf's weak rhythm. When the calf stopped, she stopped. When it moved, she moved. The entire herd adjusted. Evan felt his thoughts race. This was dangerous. Slowing the herd meant less water, less food, and more risk. Elephants needed to travel far, especially during dry weeks like this one. By waiting for the calf, the herd was putting everyone at risk. Yet no one seemed confused. When the sun climbed higher, the elephants reached a shallow, muddy area. One adult lowered her trunk, scooped up thick wet mud, and gently spread it across the albino calf's back. Then another did the same. Then another. Mud is protection. It blocks the sun. It cools the skin. Elephants use it often, but Evan had never seen them apply it with such care. The calf stood still as the mud covered its pale body. His breathing slowed. For the first time, the calf looked comfortable. Evan swallowed hard. This was not luck. This was problem-solving. The herd rested longer than usual. Some elephants stood guard facing outward. Others stayed close to the calf. The matriarch checked on it again, touching its head, then stepping back. Evan felt the old conflict rise inside him. He could call the rangers. Help could arrive. Medicine. Shade tents. Monitoring. But what if that broke this balance? Elephants remember. They fear machines and loud sounds. One mistake could scatter the herd. The calf could be separated from the very group keeping it alive. Evan stayed still. As the afternoon passed, the calf stood longer. It drank water with help from its mother. It leaned against another elephant when it grew tired. The herd did not rush it. They waited. That evening, as the light softened and the heat faded, The albino calf walked farther than it had all day. Not fast. Not strong. But forward. Evan exhaled slowly. This was no longer about survival of the strongest. This was about something else. Something deeper. By the third morning, the change was impossible to ignore. The albino calf was still weak, but it was no longer fading. It stood on its own for longer moments. Its steps were steadier. The mud on its skin had become a routine, not a rescue. The herd treated the protection like part of daily life, the same way they drank water or rested in the shade. Evan followed from a safe distance as the elephants began moving again. Their pace was slow, slower than any herd he had tracked before. Yet it was steady. No one pushed ahead. No one lagged behind. The calf walked in the middle. Two adult females stayed close on each side, and a younger elephant walked just ahead, stopping often to check behind her. When the calf hesitated, she paused. When it caught up, she moved again. It was not training. It was patience. The land ahead was dry. Water was far. Evan knew the risk was growing. Slower movement meant longer exposure to heat and hunger. If danger appeared, there would be little time to react. Then the wind shifted. Evan stiffened. He smelled it before he saw it. Lions. Moments later, shapes appeared in the tall grass. A small pride watching. Waiting. The albino calf stood out like a signal against the land. The herd reacted instantly. Adults moved inward. Young ones disappeared into the center. The albino calf was pulled close, surrounded by thick bodies and long ivory. The elephants faced outward, standing tall and still. No fear. No chaos. Just power. The lions did not charge. They circled for a while, testing. Then they backed away. The wall did not break. When the danger passed, the herd relaxed. The circle opened. Movement resumed. The albino calf was untouched. Evan felt something heavy settle in his chest. Not fear. Respect. That afternoon, near a small water source, the calf did something unexpected. It lifted its trunk, scooped up mud, and dropped it on its own leg. The motion was clumsy but clear. It was learning. The young elephant beside it repeated the motion slowly, almost like a lesson. The calf tried again. This time the mud landed where it needed to be. Evan smiled without realizing it. This was not rescue. This was teaching. By sunset, the calf was resting on its feet, not collapsed in the dirt. Its skin looked calmer. Its eyes were alert. It watched the others not with fear but focus. The herd had not just slowed down. They had adapted. And in doing so, they were changing the future of the smallest member among them. Evan understood now. Helping was not always stepping in. Sometimes, helping was stepping back and letting nature show how deep its wisdom really runs. The next few days tested everything the herd had built together. The savanna grew harsher. The grass thinned. The sun felt heavier each afternoon. The water they depended on began to shrink, forcing the elephants to move farther than planned. For a herd carrying a fragile calf, this was the kind of pressure that often ends stories badly. But the herd did not panic. The matriarch led them on a longer path, one that offered more shade even though it added distance. The group traveled early in the morning and late in the evening, resting through the worst heat of the day. These were not habits Evan had seen often. They were adjustments made for one small life. The albino calf still struggled at times. Its legs trembled after long walks. Its skin needed constant care. But it was no longer just receiving help. It was participating. When the herd stopped, the calf moved toward shade on its own. When mud was nearby, it reached for it first. It stayed close without being guided. The young elephant that had become its quiet protector remained nearby, but less closely than before. The calf was learning its place not as a burden but as a member. One afternoon, a sudden heat wave rolled across the land. Even the adults showed signs of stress. Ears flapped harder. Breathing grew louder. Evan watched carefully, ready to leave if the herd showed signs of collapse. Instead, something unexpected happened. The adults gathered dry soil and dusted themselves, then moved close to the calf again. Not tightly. Just enough. Their bodies blocked the sun and trapped cooler air around the center. The calf rested without collapsing, standing steady through the worst hours. Evan realized something important. The herd was not sacrificing itself for the calf. They were becoming stronger because of it. Their bonds were tighter. Their awareness sharper. Their movements more deliberate. Protecting one had improved them all. By the sixth day, the herd reached a wide, deep water source surrounded by trees. The relief was immediate. The elephants drank deeply. Calves played. The albino calf stepped into the water and stood quietly, its reflection pale and bright beneath the surface. For the first time, Evan saw it splash. Not by accident. On purpose. That moment stayed with him. It was small. Easy to miss. But it meant everything. The calf was no longer fighting to survive. It was beginning to live. Evan felt the weight of every doubt he had carried slowly lift. Nature had not failed this baby. And neither had the herd. They had done something humans rarely expect. They had made space for difference and turned it into strength. On the final morning Evan followed the herd. The savannah was quiet in a way that felt complete. The air was cool. The light was soft. The elephants moved with calm purpose, no longer shaped by urgency but by balance. The albino calf walked confidently near the center of the group. His steps were still shorter than the others, but they were sure. The pale skin that once looked fragile now carried layers of dried mud, earned through habit and learning. The calf no longer waited to be protected. It knew when to move, when to rest, and where to stand. The herd had made its choice clear. They were not dragging the calf forward. They were walking with it. Evan stopped and watched as the matriarch paused at the front of the group. She turned her head slightly, checking behind her. The herd slowed for a moment. Then they continued, perfectly aligned. The calf stayed in rhythm, no help needed. This was not a miracle. It was patience repeated every day. As the elephants disappeared into the tall grass, Evan felt a quiet weight settle inside him. He had arrived believing nature was harsh and unbending. That weakness was always punished. That survival belonged only to the strongest. What he had witnessed proved something else. Nature is not careless. It is selective in ways humans do not always understand. The herd had not saved the calf out of emotion alone. They had adapted because adaptation is survival. They had protected the calf because doing so strengthened the group. The calf in return had learned, adjusted, and grown. Evan knew many people would want to step in. To manage. To control. To protect with rules and plans. And sometimes that help is needed. But not always. Sometimes the most respectful choice is to watch, to learn, and to trust the systems that existed long before humans arrived. As Evan turned away, he did not feel fear for the albino calf. He felt confidence. The calf belonged to a family that had proven its strength in the hardest way possible, through care, patience, and unity. Somewhere ahead, the dry season would come. Challenges would return. Nothing in the wild is guaranteed. But one truth was now clear. This baby albino elephant was never meant to survive alone. It survived because the herd chose to change. And in doing so, they showed that the greatest strength in nature is not perfection. It is the ability to protect what is different and move forward together.